And just a reminder, you can mute me if you don't want to hear me talk over all this, but otherwise I'll be talking, so let's get straight to it. Okay, letters to Santa. Pierce. Dear Santa, you know I'm a man of few words and simple pleasures, so I'll get right to it. A few cases of Saints Flow. I'm not picky about the flavour, I like them all. Oh, I know, go for the variety packs. 2. A copy of all my commercials I did back on Earth. I'd like to have them for my portfolio just in case we come across some intergalactic talent agency that's looking for some new up-and-coming on-screen actors. I know I'd kill it in outer space. 3. A full set of high-end recording equipment. Yeah, I wish I had that as well. You know, preamps, microphones, vintage Studer, if that's even how that's pronounced, A180 reel-to-reel recorder, keyboards, etc. You'd think being for an advanced alien technology they'd have good equipment, but serious, this Zin stuff is crap. 4. If anyone else asked for a life-sized Saints Flow can with arms and legs and stuff, do not get it for them. They just want to put it in my bunk while I sleep, so when I wake up I freak the hell out. I think that's about it. I'm totally cool if you don't get all this stuff, so don't sweat it if you can't find the Saints Flow. But item 4 is a must. Seriously, that's just not cool. Pierce, Washington. Kinsey. Dear Santa, as I'm absolutely positive you would agree I've been nice this year, I wanted to send you a list of desired presents I would love to find tucked under my tree some Christmas. Feel free to bring me as many of these as you would like, though the more you do the better I can continue to save the collective rear ends of the saints and humanity. Here they are, in no particular order. 1. Prototype computer processor capable of quadrillions of instructions per second. The government has one in a secret lab somewhere. 2. Neural interface for my laptop so I can connect it directly to my brain, also in a secret government lab, though I think it's a different lab. 3. Research on the existence of alien technology so I can compare it to the Zin Tech. Look up Area 31, the secret government base that all Area 51 alien research was taken to after the public became too curious. 4. Nanite technology specs from the government's secret program on... Okay, actually, I'll make this easier for you. If it's tech-based and comes from secret government research labs that even the president doesn't know about, then I want it. I know I can put it to better use than they've been, since they couldn't even bother to stop the Zin from invading in the first place. Oh, and one more thing. A new leather harness and swing for personal use. Kinsey, Kensington. Asher. Santa, in order to stop the Zin here and any that may still exist in the galaxy beyond our own solar system, I require the following items. The tactical layout of all Zin ship classes and battle stations. All access codes and physical keys for any area on said ship or stations. A complete account of all battle strategies used by the Zin Empire, both currently and in the past. If you're willing to throw a personal request in there, I'd really like some earplugs to keep Pierce's singing out of my head while I try to concentrate on my training. With love, Asher. Sid, my favourite character. To the one known as Santa. If I have been informed correctly, then you are willing to accept letters which dictate requests for gifts by those who believe in you. As I am one who believes in such a concept, then I am sending you this list for the upcoming holiday season. 1. A robotic form complete with arms, legs, synthetic skin and fully functioning human anatomy. If option 1 is not possible, then the following would be acceptable substitutes. A wider variety of attachable tools for my metal shell. A modular voice program so I may sound like any individual I wish. A detachable wireless camera so I may spy on any room in the ship undetected. Weapons of any kind so that I may not feel as vulnerable. Fun Shaundy, downloaded into my own memory matrix so I may have someone to talk to, even if only in my mind. Poor guy. Extra strength lubricant. Sid. And that was a lie actually, my favourite character was Oleg, the giant Russian. Anyway, Johnny Gat. Santa, bring me the following. 4.45 Fletcher heavy pistols. 2 9mm tactical pistols. 2 Deacon 12-gauge shotguns. A crate of SWAT SMGs. 2 crates of Sokolov AR rifles. 1 J7 rocket launcher with as many crates of ammo as you can find. 1 knife thrower. 6 large knives. 2 small knives. 4 containers of hair gel. Gat. Ben King. Dear Santa, I know it's been rough for the human race right now, you know, what with the entire planet being destroyed, which is why I think sending this letter is so important. It reminds us all of the collective joy and happiness this time of year brings, even to those who are facing as much adversity as we are. So with that in mind, I have a few things I'd like to request if you have the time to deliver them. If not, I understand, Santa. A nice fountain pen that's refillable, a nice yellow scarf, a tailored silk suit, a box of cigars. I'm sure you remember my brand, Santa. And that's all. I'm sorry I won't have the cookies you like from that corner bakery this year, but I hope you understand. Once we find a good kitchen and some supplies out here in space, I'll see about whipping up a few batches of chocolate chip for you. Warmest holiday regards, Benjamin King. Shaundy. Dear Santa, I know I wasn't always a good girl in the past, but I'd like to think I've changed for the better this year. Really hoping I made it onto the nice list, because if Pierce did and I didn't, then I'd never hear the end of it. Plus, I think you'll find my wish list to be rather short and totally in the spirit of the holidays. So here it goes. I wish for you to give my younger self the best Christmas she's ever had. I know, not what even I expected to say, but here's the thing. I never had a good Christmas after my family left, as I'm sure you of all people know, Santa. I was either too stoned out of my mind or too busy with awful boyfriends who never really cared. I just thought it'd be nice for younger me to experience a good holiday like she used to. After all, I was kinda mean to her when I found her in assimilation, but I've totally realised she's still a part of me that I needed to accept, and I know how much it would have meant to me back then to get gifts that didn't come from the gas station or some back alley light bulb. So that's it. Just make her happy, and I'll be happy. Forever hopeful, Shaundy. P.S. And in case you didn't know, she's stuck in the simulation, so you'll probably have to go there in order to deliver the presents, or get Kinsey to program them in. Either way works. Thanks. Matt Miller. Dear Santa Claus, if you find the time to stop by and drop presents off under our tree aboard the ship, then I'd really like the following few items. The complete Nightblade DVD Collector's Edition box set. The Secrets of the Cyprian Order Collector's Edition book, signed by the show's writers. Villains of the Night. The I can't pronounce that word. Compendium of the many evils Nightblade has faced over the years. The Nightblade Swimsuit Limited Edition comic book. One Dakimakura with the Bloody Canoness, and one with the Marion, and one with Nightblade. Okay, and one of everything Kinsey wants as well. Your fan, Matt Miller. Keith David. Santa, I'll make this simple. All I want this year is one thing. Get me off this ship. Seriously, I signed up for 4 years as Vice President. This shit here is ridiculous. Keith David. And the boss. Dear Santa, I'll try doing, even though I'm British, I'll try putting on an even more British accent to go with the character that I'm playing as. Dear Santa, you've taught me more about the holiday spirit than I've ever thought possible. Thank you. I'm new to this whole Christmas list thing, so bear with me. Whatever Pierce wants, it'll make him happy, I'm good with that. Whatever Shaundy wants, I'm sure she has her reasons, so probably worth letting her have it. Whatever Keith wants, he's certainly worked to deserve, so that's good for him. Whatever Ben wants is probably stuff most of us would find boring, but if it makes him smile, then go for it. Whatever Kinsey wants, I'm sure will benefit us all in the end, so I'm guessing we'd all like her to have it. Whatever Gat wants to have, let him. Trust me, it's easier that way. Whatever Aisha wants, I'm sure she'll think it's important and all, but make sure to throw in something nice and fun for her too. Maybe then she can relax a bit. Whatever Matt wants, I suppose it's okay to let him have. Just don't tell me what it is and I'll probably be happier that way. Whatever Sid wants, I'll probably check to make sure it's safe first. He has some odd tastes. And for me, a pony. That's a standard first gift to ask for, right? Still full of holiday spirit, the boss. P.S. And I'm sorry I was such a Grinch, whatever that means, as nobody bothered to explain it to me yet, and said fuck Santa before. I didn't mean it. Well, I did mean it at the time, but now I don't. That's it for Letters to Santa. Let's go to the Christmas text adventures. 1. Holidays past and present. When I was a child, Christmas was my favourite time of year. My family was always crazy busy with work and school, but when December 25th rolled around, it was all about family. Just us, some music, snow on the ground, and a tree that reached the ceiling. It was magic. As I got older, the holiday became less and less special. My siblings went away, my parents broke up, but I always held Christmas in my heart. I believed in Santa. I needed Santa. Little did I know that Santa had been kidnapped. No one knew at first. The Christmas spirit was so strong that everything at the North Pole just kept on going as if nothing had happened. Of course, the elves and Mrs. Claus knew Santa was gone, but they also knew that the world must never know. If the people of Earth learned Santa was in trouble, in true mortal peril, what would raise their spirits during dark times? What would Christmas mean anymore? And so it was that Santa's closest friend, an elf named Twinkle, took over Kringle's annual route, and no one was the wiser. Until a strange visitor arrived one day. The elves had toiled tirelessly without Santa for decades, constantly worrying about their beloved patriarch and eagerly awaiting some good news about the jolly old elf. So the arrival of a visitor piqued everyone's interest. This visitor, with his shimmering eyes and long white beard, would have been a dead ringer for Saint Nick in his early years, before all those dinners of milk and cookies led to his considerable paunch. But this was no merry elf. No. This was something else. Well, obviously, but really that's as good a description as any. The visitor who came was a mangled and angry spirit who hated everything about holidays and cheer, and snow and elves and reindeer and stockings and coarse synergistic initiatives to streamline toy production without resulting in us outsourcing domestic jobs to politically lopsided countries with tax labour laws. That was a long sentence. He called himself Claus. We had no idea at the time that this dark monstrosity was ripped right from Santa's brain, that Saint Nick's captor, an alien overlord named Zinyak, was breaking Santa's mind, piece by piece. Zinyak had taken everything good in Kringle, crumbled it up, spat on it, and dipped it in evil. The result was Claus, Santa's dark shadow. Zinyak had sent Claus to the North Pole. To destroy the holidays. And he was successful. Christmas fell, the North Pole burned, and as the joy drained from the season, the spirit of the world turned us to sackcloth. But that is a different story. The rise of Claus. The assault on the North Pole was swift and brutal. The elves mounted a valiant resistance, but with no Santa to give them the holiday boost they needed, even they knew they ultimately could not win. It didn't help matters any that Santa's most trusted elf, and the one who had taken over gift-giving duties in his absence, had been persuaded to Claus's side. I am of course talking about Twinkle. If there's one bright spot to Santa's incarceration by Zinyak, it's that the jolly old elf didn't have to see his best friend in the world turn against him in the holiday's darkest hour. Santa would have been shattered. I wish I could tell you that Claus had coerced, threatened or bullied Twinkle into allying with the foul creature's plan, but the truth was far pettier than that. Twinkle was simply tired of being the replacement Santa. The elf took to Claus's course with gusto. It was a dark time. Worse still was that Twinkle knew Christmas's one true weakness. He knew the one thing that would irreparably turn the tide against Mrs. Claus and the elf resistance. The North Pole. The source of Santa's power and the most potent weapon in the elven arsenal. Crafted by the shop's most talented elves and blessed by Father Christmas himself. The North Pole is a weapon capable of channeling holiday cheer into a blast of such high intensity it can level a large city in a mushroom cloud of concentrated happiness. It also smells faintly of peppermint. But no one, not Mary, not Santa, not even Blitzen on one of his drinking binges, wouldn't dare unleash its power. If the North Pole fell into Twinkle's hands, into Claus's hands, then all would be lost. Claus unleashed a full-on assault. His army was unstoppable, the first to fall, with a flying reindeer. You know Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen? They were the first to die. Claus and his evil army put their heads on pikes and paraded them around the workshop. It wasn't long after, as I would learn later, that Claus built his team of mechanical creatures, the Robo-Deer. It wasn't long before the elf resistance and all of Christmas was in shambles. Claus locked Merry away in a remote ice floe and claimed the North Pole for himself, but he was unable to wield it because it relied on the power of giving, even if it was a WMD. But it didn't matter, for Claus was in charge now. The sky over the workshop darkened, and Twinkle, that traitor, became a slave driver. The only hope the world had was a renegade elf. Tinsel was his name. This lone elf managed to break off from the others and escape the ever-watching eye of Twinkle and Claus. Tinsel went to find help, to turn back time if necessary, in order to save the holidays, and he would find it, but not before the entire world got put on the naughty list. A Christmas peril. Claus had taken over the workshop. He had the North Pole in his possession. Mrs. Claus was locked away. The reindeer was slain. Twinkle, the traitorous lout, was working the elves to the bone. It was the darkest time in Christmas history, and it was about to get darker. With only hours until Christmas, Claus and his minions didn't have long to ruin the holidays, but they didn't need much time. Claus's first stage in Operation Black Christmas was the production of dangerous toys. Long gone were the days of dollies and trains. Claus had his elves rebuild the machines used to create toys, so they now produced only weapons of war. An army of elves wasn't enough for him. He wanted more, bigger, meaner soldiers. He wanted to turn the world's children to his side. After all, everybody still thought Santa was in charge. News of Nick's imprisonment hadn't spread beyond the workshop, and that happened decades ago. The people of Earth were oblivious to Claus's resume and his evil intent. Claus was counting on them to do as Santa told them. If Santa gave them guns and knives and nuclear warheads to play with, who would turn it down? Good little boys and girls? Exactly. No one. And so the elves went about making their weapons and deadly toys, and into Claus's sack they went. As the hour of judgment loomed, the spirit around the workshop was dire. No one dared speak up to oppose their Taskmaster Twinkle or his boss, the vile Claus. Come midnight, Claus climbed into his sleigh and went about his annual route, his robo-deer braying in the cold winter's night. Claus set an arsenal into the stockings and under the decorated trees of every household. Not everyone got presents though. There were those Claus had put on the naughty list. Those people got something much worse. Eternal torment and pain. Even worse, those poor souls unfortunate enough to be deemed naughty by Claus were not simply denied presents or subjected to lashings. No, Claus had something much worse planned for them. On Christmas morning, those who had not made the nice list were seized by maniacal nutcrackers and whisked away to the workshop. They were to become the subject of Claus's grand experiment. He needed those of a naughty disposition to turn into his special soldiers. As it turns out, Mrs. Claus wasn't simply locked in a prison on that ice floe. She was being forced by Claus and his crew to create, well, the only word for them is abominations. She was making gingerbread men. Not just any gingerbread men made of sugar and flour. These were cookie soldiers bent on world domination, driven by an insatiable hunger for war. But the gingerbread men experiment was failing. They were lacking that special ingredient. Human brains. A full frosted assault. Christmas had come, and with it the reckoning of Claus. The good were given weapons, the not so good were kidnapped by sentient nutcrackers to be turned into malicious gingerbread men. Mums and dads around the globe attempted to take the guns and knives and grenade launchers from their children, but were met by meltdowns, temper tantrums, and the occasional rude gesture. How could Mummy and Daddy hate Santa? Why would they take his gifts away from them? Without an answer, the parents had no choice but to relent. But this was only the first phase of Claus's plan. The second was enacted on New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve 2013, a day which will live in infamy. A fleet of sleighs, large enough to block out the sun, descended from the northern tip of the earth like a black cloud. No one knew it was coming. No one was prepared. Gingerbread men, crazed nutcrackers, Even turncoats morphed into giants by Claus's power, and a stampeding horde of robo-deer stormed across the land. Scared, defenceless, and more than a little confused, the people of Earth holed up in their homes, unsure of what to do. Little were they prepared for what happened next. For Claus's last punch in the sack, what? For Claus's last punch in the sack was even more nefarious, more wicked. Claus's master stroke was an army of children. What no one knew was that these toys that Claus had given the young people of Earth on Christmas morning, the bayonets and flamethrowers and mine launchers, emitted a high-pitched noise, only perceivable by children, that turned them into mindless zombies when triggered by Claus. By pressing a button on the head sleigh, Claus activated his army. The kids picked up their weapons and took their parents hostage. The grown-ups were forced into large, gaudily wrapped packages, tossed into a large pack and hauled away to the workshop. The nutcrackers set about destroying all that was left behind, smashing cars and bikes, setting homes aflame. With the world burning and its citizens captured, Claus set about on the next phase of his plan. But what Claus didn't count on was a rogue elf. Tinsel, the elf who had thwarted Claus's forces and escaped the workshop, had made it to civilization, just in time to tell a small ragtag group of regular people what Claus, Twinkle, and the rest of their minions had been plotting. Trekking southward from the pole was no mean feat, but Tinsel knew he must get the message out. He had to let the people of Earth know what was coming, and he knew, more than anything, that the best people to tell were the Saints. That's right, the Saints. Well, actually, just one saint. Me. So I'm guessing this is from Shaundy's perspective then. But come on, they should have told the boss. I mean, he's the one who's killing everyone all the time. Okay, so 5. Tinsel. A big fan of my reality dating show, I Want to Sleep with Shaundy, Tinsel was fixated on finding me, both to get an autograph and to help save the world. Not only had Tinsel managed to get away, he brought something with him, a small pouch of Christmas magic. He didn't have enough to just wish Claus away, but he did have enough so that, if enough people believed really hard, the magic dust might be able to free the people Claus had brainwashed. It was a long shot, but it was all we had. Of course, the first thing I did was assemble the crew. Although I'm betting that and that both happened as well. Hey, I knew I could handle things on my own, but it never helps to have backup. The first one I called was Johnny. First things first, I wanted more than an elf watching my back. Kinsey was next. She then insisted on calling Keith David, but he was last seen on location playing himself in his own life story, and nobody had his number. Ben King had taken money he'd made on that weirdo sci-fi book he wrote and was on some remote island somewhere. I suggested Matt Miller, but Kinsey shut it down. Apparently she'd had enough of sharing the spotlight with him. Every second we weren't taking action was another moment Claus was ruining the planet. I made the call to only bring back one more person. Seriously, it best be the boss. I mean, all the games starring me, killed everyone, killed giant horrible monsters. Yeah, damn right it's me. Of course, they spent the first 20 minutes laughing in my face. They didn't even believe in Santa. They figured Claus was just some crazy alien who followed us home, gave kids a bunch of guns, and was now unleashing its armada on us, which, oddly enough, is actually a more plausible explanation. They were down for helping. Anytime shooting bad guys is part of the plan, the boss wants involved. But no way they were buying into Christmas magic or elves or any of that. I like to think they changed their minds. But they didn't? Of course not. Have you met the boss? Look, I respect the hell out of them and I'm loyal as a dog to them, but just open-minded, they are not. Once they get some idea in their head, they just... I'm going off point. Anyway, we had our crew and you know what? It felt good. Me, Kinsey, the boss, Johnny, lean and mean. Oh, and Tinsel. Lean and mean and really short. I mean, seriously short. He came up to my kneecap. I wasn't even going to think about wearing a skirt around this guy. Sorry, going off topic. So, we had the crew. We had some magic dust. We had an objective: take out Claws. How we were actually going to do that? Well, that will be told in the next text adventure segment. Yep. Operation Holiday Hustle. Claws was holding the world hostage. Tinsel had finally made his way to me with his sack of magic dust, which was kind of disturbing. The crew, the important parts anyway, had been assembled. We knew he wanted to get all those people who had been brainwashed by Claws' twisted presence on our side, and Tinsel assured us the magic dust could do it. But of course there was a problem, which was hitting enough people with it. According to Tinsel, you had to come into contact with the dust to be affected by it. We only had a little bit, meaning we couldn't waste a speck, and no good way of distributing it to a wide audience. Kinsey said she could produce more if she had the components, but Tinsel said that only Santa could bless the stuff. Without Santa, it was just dead skin cells and sawdust. Johnny suggested putting it into a sprayer and hosing people with it. Not a bad idea, but it was the boss who came up with the best plan. Crop dusting. Yep. It appears sometime during the presidency, Pierce had the great idea of hooking up an aerial application apparatus to an Air Force One. From what the boss said, it was to be part of Pierce's attempt to paint the whole world purple. Our glorious communications director, ladies and gentlemen. Well, turns out this harebrained scheme of Pierce's was actually going to come in handy. Under the cover of darkness, we made our way to the hangar. We were quite surprised Claws hadn't set up defences around any command centres or anything. Whether that was a product of his ego or just an oversight is hard to say, and prepared for our counter-assault. We'd just gotten everything in order when Claws' forces attacked us. Tinsel, bless his little elven heart, wasn't the sneakiest elf in the world. He'd been trailed the entire way from the workshop to Washington, D.C. A spy, following orders from that turncoat Twinkle, reported back to Claws about our plan. As soon as the hangar doors opened, a fleet of sleighs, each one signalled by the screeching of its robo-deer, descended from the sky. They came at us, guns blazing. We took cover in the hangar and unloaded what we had. I have no idea how long the battle took, but it seemed to last for hours. Gingerbread men, nutcrackers, weirdly tall elves, and mechanized reindeer surrounded us. Our enemy was strong, but we were determined. After the smoke cleared, it was obvious. It was a draw. The Saints don't do draws. Okay, we won, I'm guessing. No, okay, fine, Claws won. We were outgunned, outmanned, and had nowhere to run. I grabbed a rocket launcher, climbed aboard Air Force One, and started firing missile after missile at them. Twinkle, in his robo-deer-driven sleigh, swooped down and grabbed me. He dragged me up high, high into the sky. I remember the look he had, that twisted grin, that disgusting shimmer in his eye.
"Happy New Year, gal,"
he said. Then, let's just say when I landed on the dirt, I was short one arm, that bastard. I was losing blood fast and fading. Last thing I saw was Johnny climbing onto Twinkle's sleigh, and the scream he let out when the elf levelled my arm, still grasping onto that rocket launcher, right at Gat's face. Soon after, it was over. Air Force One was grounded, we were all taken hostage, and Christmas was forever ruined. The planet had fallen to an evil version of Santa and his no-good army of twisted Christmas icons. All hope was lost. We had no choice but to surrender to Claus' will. The world was his now, or so he thought. Last-ditch effort. The Saints had lost. All hope was gone. The world had fallen under the rule of Claus, and not even us Saints could save the day. Johnny was gone for real now. I lost an arm, though Twinkle insisted on replacing it so that I was still useful. Years went by. The boss was locked away in Claus' office while the rest of us, including the other Saints with whom we'd been reunited, were put to work in the mines. Our job, day in and day out, was to collect metals from the earth. All we had to work with were a set of tiny hammers and some thimble-sized buckets. Why Twinkle and his men didn't make human-sized tools for us, I have no idea. Just another sign of their maliciousness, I suppose. We'd attempted many uprisings, of course, but they were always thwarted by the watchful eye of Claus. Surprisingly, we rarely saw Claus. Rumours bounded that he was busy working on some grander plan, some ultimate master phase, but no one knew for certain what that was. Oh, try again, I got that wrong, okay. That taskmaster Twinkle? Yes. While Claus was rarely seen, Twinkle and his giant elves were omnipresent. Like starving hawks, they watched our every move. We couldn't wipe a bead of sweat from our brow without bringing down their wrath. That didn't stop us. We developed a code, subtle gestures, inflections on certain words that helped us communicate with each other. With it, we were able to devise a plan right under their noses. The first phase of our operation was to because he was still alive, infiltrate Claus's office. Not a bad way to start, but no, we had to do something else first. Lead a work uprising, I guess. The more the merrier, right? In order to take out Claus for good, we needed to make sure Twinkle and his crew were distracted. It was Pierce who came up with the plan. I know, I was surprised too. It was Asher and Ben who put it into action. Kinsey faked an injury to draw the guard's attention. Ben struck from behind while Asher grabbed the giant elf's weapon. When other guards came running, I rallied the workers. By the time Twinkle and his posse showed up, we had taken the mine. The giant elves lay at our feet, and the workers stood by our side. We were ready for Phase 2. Take out the robo, dear. No? Alright, so you're going to use those to escape. Taking out Twinkle then. Damn right. I was going to get that son of a bitch for my arm, for Johnny, and for siding with Claus and helping start this whole mess in the first place. The workers took their tiny tools and acquired guns from the giant elves. Asher and Ben cleared out the others while I leaped on that bastard Twinkle like a jungle cat. I wasted no time pummeling Twinkle to a pulp. With my last punch, I drove my fist through his giant elf face and into the ground below. Twinkle down, we stormed Claus's compound. Seeing us energized, the workers who had been on the assembly line took up arms alongside us. The battle of Santa's workshop was long and bloody. Sometime during the battle, I got my hands on a crimson cowboy, the best weapon in the elven arsenal. We were just outside Claus's office when a robo-deer with a glowing nose charged me. I leveled my gun and squeezed the trigger. The bullet bounced off the reindeer's metal hide and landed square in my eye. You gotta be careful about BB guns. I went down, but I wasn't out. I rose again, and together we tore Robo Rudolph apart. The path to Claus's office now clear, we threw open the doors, ready to take that monster down and once and for all. But the monster's room was empty. Claus was gone. All that was left was a note. Nice try, Saints. You did real well, but I'm afraid you're stuck in this living hell. One planet couldn't beat me. Don't you see? Now the universe will fall just as easily. By the way, I've got your boss. I'd be lying to say I was sorry for your loss. Had all our fighting been for nothing? No, no way. We couldn't let Claus win. We couldn't let the entire universe fall under his resume. We had to stop Claus. But how? Well, I just rely on the boss, seeing as that's me and I've been able to deal with every single problem I've ever faced, but let's see. Find a reserve of Christmas magic in the workshop. Nope, nothing left. Zignac's time machine then. Claus had found Zignac's time machine and hidden it in the back of his office. I'd never been so happy to see a machine in my life. Kinsey would disagree. The machine was mangled though. Half of it was missing, using parts from the destroyed Robo Rudolph, some of which were used to fix my eye. In a little elven ingenuity, Kinsey and Matt got the machine back in working order, but it only had enough juice to send one of us back. Matt thought it should be Asher. Ben suggested Kinsey, but it was Pierce who said it should be me. Shondi's lost the most of any of us, he said. Huh, maybe I'd been too hard on Pierce this whole time, I thought. Plus, if she doesn't come back, we still have everybody important. Or maybe not. Still, I agreed. I would make the trip back to my own past. But when? How far back to go? I could have travelled back and warned everyone about this invasion, but I also knew I needed to be able to get back to my time. Also, if we had never been abducted, we wouldn't have gotten Johnny back. so I chose the day before Claus came to power. We would have defeated Zinyak already and had his time machine, but it wouldn't be too late to save Christmas. And you know, 7 billion people were killed, but I guess that doesn't matter. I set the course, stepped into the machine, and hit the button, and like that, I was gone. Final part, the future. So, she comes back to us, we do a lot of fighting, we kill all those bastard elves that betrayed us, we killed the robo reindeer, we killed all the evil robot toy men and the gingerbread men, and most importantly, Claus himself. We had done it. Claus had been defeated, Santa had been saved, the boss even learned the true meaning of Christmas. But I couldn't stay. I had to get back to my own time, but not before taking part in the most glorious montage the world had ever seen. After that, I said my goodbyes to everyone and stepped into the Zen time machine. I set the machine for the only date I could and pressed the button. In a flash, I disappeared from the past and materialized back in the present. I stepped out of the time machine to find myself inside a museum. Sometime during the decade since we successfully saved Christmas, the Saints had apparently forgotten that I'd been coming through that damn thing and stashed it inside a history exhibit. Not that big of a deal, except for the fact the museum was closed for the holidays. Admittedly, not the most epic of the options, but yes, the museum was closed for holidays, which meant I couldn't get out unless I broke the glass of my cyber arm, which I did. The world outside was magnificent. Lights of every colour sparkled on the fronts of every building. Children grown-ups alike were making snowmen on street corners. From storefronts, I could hear carols and hymns filling the street. Christmas, and those other holidays too, had survived. Shouldn't your robo-arm and your robo-eye change back to being normal because, you know, we changed everything? Guess not. I asked an orphan boy what day it was and he told me it was Christmas Eve. There was still time. Still time! Okay, that last part didn't happen, but of course I had to come back to the day before Christmas. I had to see it. I had to know, really know, we had won. The first place I went was the boss's place. What? What's wrong with the boss's place? Oh, fuck you then. Johnny's, I guess. Predictable, right? But look, after everything we'd been through, and after losing him again thanks to Twinkle, it was the first place I thought of. That would have been proof beyond proof that we really had changed the future. Seriously, people don't give the boss enough respect. He could kill everyone. Damn. But when I went to his door, he didn't answer. I knocked again. No answer. It wasn't until after I busted down his door. The cyber arm is pretty awesome. And I realised he wasn't there. No message, no nothing. Feeling sad and a little bit lonely, I decided then to stop by the boss's place. Fine. Kinsey's? We're like sisters, right? I figured if anyone would know where Johnny was, or where anybody was, it would be Kinsey. I took a cab to her inner sanctum and knocked on that big ugly garage door. But again, there was no answer. That's because they're at the boss's place and I live in a goddamn palace. I thought about ripping it off its hinges. Could my cyber arm even do that? But no, she was probably off being Kinsey somewhere. You know, Kinsey-ish. Or maybe she had moved. I realised then that it had been a long time and people move and, hell, people die. Maybe there were no more saints. A sobering thought. With nowhere else to go, I went to... Come on, boss's place. Not gonna happen. Well, fine then, you're no longer my friend. Ben King's? I don't know where Ben lives. Okay, your place then. I'd brought the place outright with the cash I got from that game show, so I figured if any place had the best chance of still being around, it was my place. I grabbed a cab and headed home. I couldn't believe nobody was around, or that nobody was there to greet me. I mean, I told them I was going back to Christmas Eve 2035, so you think at least one of them could mark it on their calendar and maybe say thanks, Shaundy, for warning us about Claus and helping turn the tide of human history, and also for saving Santa and Christmas and all those other holidays too. But no, nothing for one-eyed Shaundy. Old one-eyed, one-armed Shaundy. After the cab left, I stood for a moment in the cold December air. It was dark out, not a hint of snow. I knew I should be happy just to be home, but I felt empty, alone, sad. I was heading towards the door when I realised I didn't have my keys. Was I going to have to bust down my own door too? Well, it turns out I didn't need to, because as soon as I got close, the door opened. And there he was, Johnny. That big goofy grin on his face. And it wasn't just him, it was Kinsey and Asher and Matt and Ben and Pierce and the boss. They hadn't forgotten. In fact, they all knew the one place I would eventually have to come back to. They welcomed me home with hugs and high fives and rounds of Merry Christmas. Kinsey was just telling us about how Santa had given everyone a special present as a thank you when I heard a strange yet familiar voice from the kitchen yell, "Is she here?" A strange vibe filled the room at that point. Everybody hushed, except for Kinsey. "Oh," she said, "I suppose I should have warned you." "It's all right, Kinsey," the voice in the kitchen said. "I'm sure she'll recognise me." And into the room walked me. Other me. Another me. No cyber arm. No robot eye. Short haircut. I always wondered what I'd look like with short hair. Kinsey did her best to explain. When we saved Christmas, we started an alternate timeline. This is the you that exists without Claus and Twinkle and all that happening. I admit, it was weird. Like, really weird. But okay. I mean, I was used to hanging out with the other versions of me by that point. "Hey, let's knock back some nog. What do you say?" Typical Pierce. Or at least some eggnog-flavoured Saints Flow. And so we did. And we talked and laughed and shared stories while outside it started to snow. We gathered around the tree and sang carols until late. That night, after everyone had left and I was snuggled in my bed, I heard footsteps on my roof. And I knew it wasn't the name brand sneakers of gang thugs. Oh, World Without Christmas, lovely. Of gang thugs or the webbed feet of some alien race or the trumping metal repulsors of Robo-Deer, but the pitter-patter of hooves and the shiny boots of St. Nick. Tomorrow morning, I'd wake up and see what present Santa had delivered me. Whatever it was, I already had the only present I could ever ask for. The best Christmas ever. And no damn recognition for the boss. Okay, let's go show you the vehicles and the weapons and the clothes.